Yes, you guys, welcome back. In yesterday's video, I used that video as an opportunity to show my defense of the board. Unfortunately, that sentiment was lost on quite a few people, considering the amount of comments I was getting, with people mistakenly thinking this was a defense of Graham Potter. I'm very clear with how I talk, so I get a bit confused when clear statements aren't necessarily understood. But for me, there's a conversation to be had here. You can't have a conversation and distill it to just one video. It's very detailed. And right now, with our current state of season under Graham Potter, I'm kind of envisioning things as like a book. Chapter 1 was about the board. Chapter 2 today is discussing the realities. And those realities are that Graham Potter can control the controllables. That's why I've titled this video like this for a reason, because we have to also keep things real. Every season, there are challenges that come, things work against you, but to be a manager, you're not just looking at a manager during how good he is during like peak times and high times. You have to also see what he does during the difficult times as well too, because management is not linear. You have to constantly manage constant variables and differences happening throughout a season. And I kind of feel like there are areas in which Graham Potter can improve things to try and get this team learning how to win games again. Let's look at our next 3 games. We have Spurs at the end of this week. Followed by that, we have Leeds United. And followed by that, we have Dortmund in the second leg at home at Stamford Bridge. Now, if we have any hopes of beating Dortmund, seeing a reaction against 2 historic rivals is something we need to see. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't want to see wins and results. I kind of feel like with the constant negativity around this conversation, with the constant negativity of people distilling thoughts and opinions to either, okay, are you put it in or put it out? I think you guys are doing a massive disservice, and to be fair with you, I find it very boring. I'd imagine that a lot of you guys that watch me find this conversation very boring because every single time we don't do well, it's literally the same rhetoric, it's the same points. Honestly, some of us want to have deeper conversations behind things, and to have them deeper conversations, you got to assess everything equally to understand what is happening and come to better conclusions. So in today's video, let's examine Graham Potter and things he can do to bring some life back into this team and some hope in this fan base. Because if we don't have hope by that Dortmund game, you guys, these next 3 games are looking incredibly peak and things are ever changing and evolving in football. Who knows the situation? If we lost the next 3 games, what could happen afterwards? I don't think any of us know. And I don't even think our boards have any current plans at this point in time. So before I go on, obviously shout out to everyone that understood the point of yesterday's video and understood the sentiment I was coming with. And I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I also hope you get involved in the conversation so we can understand what the hell is going on. So right now, I do want to cast my mind back to the Southampton game. This Southampton game is a very interesting game considering the state of the season, and this was one of those games in which this was the final chance a lot of people had when it came to entrusting Graham Potter with this project at hand. Now, on one hand, we do have the context that the medical team strongly advise do not use certain players and don't start them because there's potential for these guys to break down. And on one hand, I think it's good that Graham Potter listened, because do we want another situation where we're having these guys returning back and then they're instantly out the team for a few more weeks? That don't help no one. But at the same time, was the solutions that Graham Potter turned to in that game necessarily the best ones to give us a fighting chance of winning the game versus Southampton? I don't think so. And I'll put my hands up. When I saw that first half lineup, as I said, I had some hope, and my hope was based on the fact that if Potter is going to be using these squad guys to maintain the same way of playing that we've seen against Dortmund and West Ham, maybe we should be seeing something better. But that was absolutely not the case, and it goes back to the title of today's video, controlling the controllables. Considering that this was the first time that a lot of these guys had actually played together in this system, we're seeing a new back line, a new midfield and a new attack. Was that necessarily going to translate into a performance that could generate a win? Hindsight is definitely speaking, but hindsight can also reinforce certain patterns that you may notice. And for me, I look at one denominator, and I think that's Azpilicueta. I think, for example, there's a reason why Potter has been constantly finding different rotational options down the right hand side. There's times we've seen Ruben as a wing-back, Conor Gallagher as a wing-back. Of course, we tried to bring Gusto in for a reason. Unfortunately, we can only wait for him until the start of next season. But I think Azpilicueta currently has hit a decline and doesn't necessarily help the team. Because I think the guy that really suffered the most was Noni Madueke. I mean, Madueke was given all up front by himself. No support, no nothing. And we got to remember that Noni Madueke is kind of like a Salah type of winger. He is a goal-scoring winger. So if this guy is all the way deep in the field, how is he going to play his best game to affect Southampton in the final third? That's not going to work. And on top of that, when you're seeing Koulibaly and Azpilicueta together on that right-hand side, two players that have been struggling with form at times, things become a bit peak. And is there any surprise that the goal that Ward-Prowse scored against us from that free kick came from these guys on the right-hand side who were constantly giving away fouls in our half, and we finally got punished for that. Now, I don't personally have answers as to why KK, Aspi and other decisions were made in that lineup. I can be absolutely wrong here, but my take, and I'll hold my hands up, I'll be absolutely wrong, but my take is it's like you're kind of bending down to play a hierarchy in that sense. Obviously, Aspi has, captaincy privileges in this team. You'd imagine that if James isn't playing, he goes straight into the team. But is there necessarily net benefits we get from his performances in these games today? Now, the reason why I keep saying control the controllables, and I got to give a special shout out to my boy Oli. We had a sick conversation talking about the state of the team, is that if these guys aren't going to be in the long-term plan, do you have to keep necessarily turning towards them if they can potentially undermine what you're trying to do? Because there's a reason why we saw like another defensive revamp in that second half, and there was more assurance and it was a better performance when Wesley was alongside Badia. I understand that squad management is a very delicate balancing act, but remember, you also have time on your side because the board is backing you. And as we've seen with Aubameyang's treatment, for example, they want him out, they try to sell him. Of course, you're fulfilling your duties, so there is power to assert some control now. But for me, the reason why I want to use this Southampton game again as the example for my points in this video is because I think it kind of typifies all the mistakes and wrong things that has been a part of Porter's management at this point in time. I mean, listen, I understand it's a unique circumstance, it's different. I mean, you're inheriting a squad middle of the season with players that you didn't ask for. You've gotten players that you do want. They've been in the country for less than a month. I know it's not ideal. I'm not going to pretend that I know better than managers that have actual degrees in this game, yeah? But I think there is a conversation around the management and the ideas and the strategy. Now, I understand rotation, but at the same time, you also have to find the right setup and system to give this team a fighting chance of winning. Another observation was Mason Mount. Playing on the left-hand side, I kind of feel like recently Mount doesn't seem to have any purpose under Graham Potter at this point in time. Rightly or wrongly, I don't really care. But considering the midfield we use in the pivot, I think it would have been a bit better to go to using a three-man midfield. I think one thing we noticed in that first half, how confident was Southampton in pressing us and disrupting our build-up game. Now, of course, I get what Porter's thinking. You got Enzo, you got Kovacic, we can play through any press, but I think it's a bit deeper than that because why? The amount of opportunities we had to link the midfield and the attack, they were starting to get more sporadic as that game was going on. And realistically, our only attacking impetus was coming from guys like Fofana trying to get past 2-3 players, guys trying to improvise on the spot. We looked absolutely lost and clueless. And you have to think with a bit of time to prepare for this game, this wasn't the best solution for a game like this, especially when you're at home trying to get the fans on your side, because it's a two-way street, whether you like it or not. My head's in the long term, but at the same time, there are still current goals that need to be met and set. I'm looking back at this, I'm giving an assessment after watching the game, but it was such a tall order for that lineup to produce something against Southampton. I don't even care that Southampton are bottom of the table. For me, it's still the Premier League. And it's the second half of the season where this is the nitty-gritty part of the season. And it ends on my final point on that assessment of the Southampton game. And it's also been something that a lot of us have noticed as well too, but we've lost our pressing powers. We've lost that intensity. Under Thomas Tuchel, when he said them famous quotes of making us one of a team that no one wants to play against, that rung true throughout everyone's heads in the fan base, we're a far cry from that. And I think that comes to our lack of pressing. It kind of makes sense though, right? If you've got João Felix now and these new attackers in the team, they're not traditionally known for their ability to press up front. I can see why you might have to consider changing how you defend as a team, but it's kind of making us a bit weaker. And when so many attacking players can't necessarily fulfill those tactical duties, was it wise to use 4 of these guys against Southampton? Why not use a midfield 3? Have João Felix on the left, Noni on the right, and Fofana up front. At least this way it gives us opportunities to try and quickly play through Southampton's press, because they were way too confident considering that their manager literally just came in and signed for them, and this was his first game. No surprise that in the second half, that's when everything kind of came back. But keeping things real, a lot of that second half was desperation football, and it really highlighted the criminal lack of attacking player understanding at this point in time, which can only get sorted with more time. And it's starting to feel like time isn't really on our side at this point in time. Of course, variables are working against us. We've got a brand new team. Porter's actually using players that he wanted to sign. He inherited a lot of these guys that he didn't want. And is there any surprise that we've seen guys like Sterling and Koulibaly and Aubameyang as well too, as prime examples of guys who are getting more reduced minutes at this point in time. We look like 2 completely different teams. Not even saying the second half was levels, but it was a small improvement over that disaster of a first half. And I think what typified the desperation, especially in that first half, which I'll go back to again, was the amount of constant tweaks that was happening that was creating more confusion. I mean, we saw Fofana up front, we saw him on the left hand side, we saw João Felix up front and on the left. We saw too many types of rotations and it wasn't really working. Now, some people were saying Mount was playing false 9. I don't even know where that came from. Nothing supports that statistically. I think people got confused with how we ended the game because we're literally just throwing men in the box, hoping and praying, playing crosses. But that doesn't mean playing false 9, so people need to get the details right. And I guess my conclusion on all these observations and these insights is the fact that, I do kind of feel like Potter, as I'm stressing, must control the controllables right now. If there's certain players aren't necessarily in your plan for the future, maybe don't use them. I look back and I think to myself, why was Trevor Chalobah not playing as a right back instead of having 2 players who have mistakes in their game in Koulibaly and Aspie now playing on that right hand side together? In that first half, Southampton outpossessed us. We were equal in terms of shots created as well too. They were better against us defensively, winning a lot more tackles and a lot more duels. And I'm starting to feel now like it is time to start prioritizing your wins and how you want to get this team firing again. Because for me, I've seen this game too long. It doesn't matter about the rebuild and the time you need, but with more bad results brings more negativity. With more negativity brings more lack of confidence in the team. And if you have all these guys with that feeling of a lack of confidence and bad blood and bad energy, which can eventually happen as bad form continues, then you make your job absolutely impossible. So in my opinion, and it's just my suggestion, I don't have the answers, I don't have the solutions, but you guys know that I like to try and assess and give you guys an outcome behind what could be a case. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions too, but I'm of the belief right now where it is time to prioritize the wins now. If we have to drop back a little bit to hit teams on the counter-attack, I think we do so. If we have to pack the midfield a bit more, I think we have to do so. If we can't find a way to use 4 attacking players in the lineup at the same time, use 3. I mean, Mudryk still needs to get full match fitness. We saw what he did as an impact sub against Liverpool. If he had to do that for a few more weeks until he's fully back and firing, I think he does that, and I think he'd understand that. One thing under Thomas Tuchel that I always said, and I will maintain this today, is that he was very effective in nullifying the opposition team's counter-attack. That was how we did some of our best work. We used a mid-block structure. We looked to funnel teams out to the wide areas. We protected ourselves in the central areas, and we were very difficult to beat, and we were constantly able to recycle and create counterattacks. Now, when it came to the attacking part of the game, that's a different story, and I don't want to talk about that because it's got nothing to do with the video. But the reason why I'm bringing this point up is that we're noticing that we are getting done and susceptible in the counterattack. And I kind of feel like when you're in this crossroads of trying to develop a system with a squad you have that's been ever evolving and ever changing, some simplicity during these times normally is a crucial thing that can at least maintain the positivity, the confidence and the faith in your squad. And with some points under your belt, the fan base can also believe you and also back you. Because come on, if you're a player, no matter how good you are, if 40,000 fans groan after you miscontrol the ball or do a bad pass, your confidence for your next pass ain't going to be the same. You could spend time theorizing, but it's wrong for the fans to do that. But let's talk about reality, and it doesn't matter. That will be the natural outcome behind those things. I remember when Mourinho first joined us during the 04-05 season, he came under criticism because the press, the media, were mentioning that we were too defensive. For all the money we spent on signing players, why are we playing a negative type of boring football? But what they never realised, what they didn't realise at the time, is that by building that defensive identity, that was slowly allowing the team to understand each other a bit more. Because when you understand your teammates' defensive positions, that can slowly help you translate where they're going to be offensively off the ball when it comes to attacking as well too. And I think we have created a lot of transitional moments recently in these past few games under Potter. But how many of these plays actually have end products? There's only so much you can do in training, but this is where for me the time is needed for these guys to naturally find that connection together, because we're talking about human beings here. It doesn't matter how good you are. We could have Mbappe in this team, and realistically, is that going to elevate what we're doing currently? Absolutely not. But I do think what can elevate us in the long term is to start strategizing and prioritizing getting wins now. I feel like I've been here before, and we've seen so many guys like, Sarri's, who were starting to find success near the end of the season. Of course, we can't forget that massive win versus Arsenal in the Europa League, and rightfully he left because he was constantly getting undermined by the boards. I remember talking about that very public article detailing Steve Holland being looked at as the interim manager for Sarri when the guy's still actually running the club. I think from that point onwards, this guy's head was not here afterwards, and he's like, listen, I'm going to stay, I'm going to go, I'm going to move on. That was the closest we came to starting to build a philosophy. We saw Lampard try to do that, yet the task was big. The lack of unity behind the scenes with the squad completely worked against him, because once key guys were injured, everything fell apart. It was also argued that maybe we should look to prioritise what Lampard did in his first season, when we got results against Man City at home during the lockdown era, where that simplicity brought confidence, it brought unity, and it brought good vibes with the squads, and most importantly with the fans. I'm someone that likes to listen to diverse opinions. I'll watch every content creator on YouTube following this club. Benson, Jan, Eunice, Kafka's Views, Monster at the time, etc, etc. I can go on, because I like to hear diverse views to understand what is currently happening. And the reason why I do that is out of respect here, because just because I may not agree with your conclusion on your opinion doesn't mean that your opinion is invalidated. From a coaching perspective, if I've got these mad conditions to work with, I've got all these new players here as well too, it's quite hard to actually develop how to play, how to move the ball, how to do these things during the middle and in the second half of a Premier League season. Let's be honest, that's a bit mad. But there seems to be a pattern in football where when things are back to basics a bit, as we literally saw against Southampton, who did something similar as well too. Wins in these manners can transform your hopes. Wins like this can develop that mental grittiness, that toughness, that will to win. And I feel like a lot of these men we sign could probably do with an education in terms of what it means to win in the Premier League, because we sign these guys from Portugal, we sign them from Ukraine, we sign them from La Liga. It's not necessarily the same level at this point in time. I see it like this. I feel like these guys that we've just signed could feel even more pressure, knowing the fact that they're still working on how to play together and how to make this work. And they have the added pressure of having to go into games winning. We have positives on our side now. We've got players slowly returning back. We're seeing N'Golo Kante start to train again. And if this guy comes back with fitness, there's going to be a lot of hope behind what he can bring to our team, because there's a Chelsea team with Kante and there's a team without him. But my thing is, let's not create a situation where we lose all hope before the hopefulness comes around the corner. And I do think ultimately in this game, you can only bring the hope back, bring the confidence back by getting wins, no matter what, during bad spells like this. Now, to give my conclusion, I imagine immediately and already that some people will conflate what I'm saying and be like, Nini, you're making more excuses. You said something different the other day, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, it really bores me, not going to lie. And maybe I'm sounding a bit harsh, but maybe if you don't appreciate how I talk, bro, there's other channels around. But as I said, I want to use these videos over the next weeks to just have focused conversations on different aspects of our season. And I think one thing too is that everyone sees that we're in a bad spell and no one's happy. This notion that people are excusing defeats, it really gets on my nerves, and it kind of borders on arrogance for me, because those people are missing the point and you're creating a divide and negativity for no reason. I mean, everyone sees that we're in a bad spell. Everyone is unhappy about things, but downing tools, saying put it out, criticizing, moaning, throwing abuse at players, it just isn't like a pattern way to do things. I don't know what else to say. That's why I made yesterday's video. It's about understanding the board and me explaining why I have faith in Eghbali and Bowley. Today I'm talking about things that Potter can do to try and right things around, because bro, we got Spurs. If we lose against Spurs, there's going to be tons of negativity. We need to see something hopeful there. Then Leeds United afterwards, followed by the massive game versus Dortmund. If there was a time now to bring a bit more faith and unity, to bring more confidence back into the team, it is going to be these next 3 games. And right now, it's also an opportunity to learn something about Graham Potter, how he deals with pressure, how he works against adversity. Now, of course, he has been in similar situations, of course, at Osterland, at Brighton, etc., etc. But right now, he is at one of the highest levels in football currently. I believe in this guy's long-term ideas. We've seen that ourselves. We saw what he did against Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea. Yeah, let's not pretend that we didn't see how Brighton played against us. That gives you hope about what the future can bring. But right now, we are absolutely in reality. And reality is showing that currently we're far away from reaching that level. And for me, it's about the process of controlling your controllables. It's about the process of slowly building details and facets and understanding in the team, instead of like throwing everything in one go and just kind of rolling through the punches. Because as I'm trying to stress, that may work in the long term, but at what cost? If you've lost the confidence of the team, if that creates dissent with the squad, because you're also working with a bloated squad with a lot of guys that you didn't want, who are now being ostracized from the team. We're looking at guys like Aubameyang. These guys are big players that have had big careers, and that negativity could seep throughout the squad. These are the type of negatives that we don't need to see happen. And the only thing that kind of buys you time is getting wins. And that's just the reality of things. So my friends, that is some observations behind what I kind of want to see Graham Potter doing right now. Tomorrow I'm going to discuss maybe a few tactical things in regards to, small positives that we could be seeing in terms of what we're doing and how we're progressing. And I'm actually thinking to end this little series on Graham Potter, I'm thinking of actually doing just like a video just talking about, maybe, I don't know, Chelsea, Twitter, the fan base in general. And I don't know, some of this like negative divide for no reason, because obviously this is like a full-time job for me. I'm on Twitter way more than I actually want to be, and then I have to be. But when you have a platform like this, you just clock certain details behind how people think what they do, because you're just constantly exposed to opinions after opinions after opinions. And you can kind of just distill what the root of these opinions actually are, where they come from. And it's a shame that it creates so much negativity, because deep down, people just want to win. We all do. But there seems to be a conflict behind how we get to the process of winning. For some people, you sack and create this short-term cycle that we've constantly seen. And for other people, it's about trying to give time for something to grow and blossom to see what happens. Because I actually believe, even though there's a lot of negatives with Graham Potter, there's also equally certain things that are making things difficult at this point in time. And even though I'm expecting things to get better, I want to see that, I can't solely put the blame completely on Graham Potter. And I have to go off the faith that my boards in Bowley and Eghbali are actually showing too. As I really keep stressing, no one can say definitively whether Potter is the right man or the wrong man at this point in time. I don't care what anyone says. You can't blindly believe he's going to be the guy to take us to the next level. And at the same time, you can't write him off based on what you're seeing with your own 2 eyes in front of you right now. Either party is going to be hit in the face in the future. And it's just like, you don't have to be so definitive and adamant that you think you're absolutely right, when this situation is so fluid, ever-changing, and things can be different in the future. So my friends, on that note, I'm EFC, this is BlueLionsTV. I'll catch you guys there with some more videos. Cool.